appreciate being asked to do the topic. I was thinking about what to do it on, and I thought about this. This joke I heard. It was talking about a guy who. It's not a guy. It's a family of little moles, and they're coming out from a snowstorm, and the dad says, well, why don't we poke our head out and go see if we can get some breakfast? And he pokes his head out, peeks it through the snow, and he sniffs around, and he reports back to the wife and the little baby mole, I smell some eggs out there. And he said, Mama Mole, why don't you go have a sniff and see what you smell? So he climbs back down and lets her up the little snoot, and she sticks her little nose out and smells. She goes, well, I smell bacon. And then he says, well, Junior Mole, why don't you give this a try? And they're both stuck in the chute right about now. And he goes, well, I can't get up there. All I can smell is molasses. So I guess it's breakfast time. But what is the motif of that story, or the rule of the story, or what he used to call something? It was the moral of the story. And it has nothing to do with snow or moles. It has to do with the thing about little baby mole is he should have been in front. And that's what I wanted to talk about, taking the lead in our recovery. Not just sitting back expecting miracles to just be handed to me. And the first quote out of the book, and it talks about taking the lead. It says, yes, there's a long period of reconstruction ahead. We must take the lead. Old baby mole could have read that. He might have been a little better off. He might have smelled something different than molasses. But that's off page 83. And you know what? I think that's a very good benchmark to shoot for. I need to take the lead in my recovery. And I remember when I got in recovery, I didn't listen to some of the people that said, oh man, you just need to don't do anything in your life. Just come to meetings and just stay off the sauce. Well, I got right back in school. My point is I picked up and started doing life, started doing things in recovery. Doing my best. I'm not saying I excelled at it. Ultimately, I did because I kept practicing. But what I did was I took the lead in my recovery. And I found out early on, even before I worked the steps out of the book, that there's so much we can do in our recovery. I think a lot of times in meetings I hear a lot of negativity about how messed up we are and how we're failures, and we pontificate about our many mistakes in the past, but I kind of like to flip the script on that and talk about successes in recovery, because I think, just for me, I believe that newcomers need to hear that. Newcomers need to hear that challenges can be overcome in recovery, not getting drunk, staying sober, and also we can accomplish things in recovery, whatever it may be. But I need some help doing that, and I think that relying on myself to do it in the past was one of my downfalls, even though sometimes I kind of knew what the thing to do was. Like when I tried to break in that house to get a different form of alcohol in 84, I had a little voice that told me, Mike, this is not a good idea. But I did it anyway. So that good orderly direction was always there, and I'm sure that I'm not the only one. There are many people in here that have shook their head that said, man, I had that little voice too. I wish I hadn't have busted up in there. Or I wish I hadn't have done whatever it was that the voice said, hey man, maybe you should have some pause between impulse and action. So here's another part of the book that talks about that, what I need to listen to. It talks about job or no job, wife or no wife. We simply do not stop drinking so long as we place dependence on other people ahead of dependence on God. And the word ahead is the one that I wanted to focus on there, because what is up front there? It says I'm placing other things up front. What it says is the key to success here is placing good orderly direction up front, right? And then it can't fail me. So if you're new and you hear the word God, don't be frightened by that. It says that basically job or no job, wife or no wife, we will stop drinking if we place dependence on God ahead of dependence on people. That's basically what that statement says. So when I say God, I'm saying good orderly direction To me, it may mean something different, but my point is the reason I mentioned the little voice is because that was some good orderly direction. And I certainly wasn't no Bible thumper back then when I broke in that house. But I had some kind of voice talking to me. And if you're like me, then you may have had that voice too. And recovery has enabled me to get more in tune with that voice, that good orderly direction that has really put me on the right path to go somewhere in recovery. And taken the lead and really taken that first quote about it's a long period of reconstruction. Now it says reconstruction, not remodeling. Not move the same old nasty dirty couch from one side of the room to the other. It talks about sometimes I got to get rid of things that aren't working. Doesn't it talk in 64 in the book when we're doing the 4-step? It talks about I got to get rid of damaged and unsaleable goods and get rid of them and keep what's good, and then I can replace those things I got rid of with something better. See? I can't keep that old shit, and I can't spot new freedoms with old ideas. We just got through reading the promises. It says we'll know a new freedom and a new happiness. Well, I can't spot new freedoms with old ideas. And what I have found is that some of these new freedoms is realizing and being okay with having what I have. You know, I remember so many times when I was letting self-will take the lead in my destruction, not in the lead in my recovery. We're talking about taking the lead in my recovery today. When I was being driven by selfish, I was always looking for something I didn't have. I was always unhappy about what I did have because it wasn't the best car or the best girl or the best job. No matter what it wasn't enough. Hell, I've heard millionaires talk about that kind of stuff. It's never enough if that's my frame of mind. And I think that what recovery has enabled me to do by taking the lead in my recovery is being okay with what I have. And the last quote I want to talk about really addresses that simple fact. And it's got the word ahead in it. So that's good. So we're talking about taking the lead and being ahead. This last one is just what I'm talking about. It says the most satisfactory years of your existence lies ahead. And I think that that's important because the phrase is very telling, because I've been in this outfit for a while now, been to more than several meetings, and I've heard that particular sentence quoted at least 100 or 2 times in my tenure here. And most of the time, that sentence is misquoted because people will say, like the book says, the best years of our existence lie ahead. You know you've heard it, but that's not what it says. See? And that's gripped with the frame of mind that I'm talking about. It's not promising me the best. It's promising me satisfactory, and it promises me that I'll be okay with that. And I think being okay with satisfactory has been a very important part of my recovery. Another word that's close to satisfactory, that's a second stanza to a prayer that we say in every single meeting, is the Serenity Prayer. Second stanza of the Serenity Prayer says, I want to be reasonably happy in this life so I can be supremely happy in the next. And there's that same concept that Bill is talking about. Being okay with reasonable and being okay with satisfactory. Because if I'm never okay with reasonable or satisfactory, I'm either the best or the worst. I've either got the best or I'm not happy. And I'm in a constant state of rushing somewhere that I can never get. I don't know about you, because I'd be rushed. Oh, I got to get to the club. Got to get there. Going to rush there. And then when I get there, guess what? It just left. Whatever the hell it was, I know I was searching for it and I never could find it. Now today I've got a grip with being careful not to rush to a meeting and get mad in the traffic. I'm going to steal something from Sam. I get mad in the traffic and shoot somebody a bird and say, get the hell out of my way. I'm going to be late for the Serenity Prayer. You know? And I've always thought that was funny. But I tell you, the steps have really helped me to see things a lot differently. And what I talked about is not being able to spot new freedoms with old ideas. In recovery, I have found out that serenity is more than a dancer at Sammy's. Okay? I think it's important for me to work the steps, and then I start seeing some of the things that were there, I see them a lot differently. So, you know, not everything in my life's changed. I'm in the same house that I got sober in. I'm in the same house that I used to sneak downstairs and do all kinds of torrid things and throw it up in the drop ceiling. There's probably a Jack Daniels jigger up in the drop ceiling of my downstairs to this day. But you know what? That jigger that's hiding up in there in that drop ceiling does not rule me like it did before. The house has taken on new meaning. My life has taken on new meaning. I'm in a different direction because I'm being led by different directions, which is the good orderly direction that we've been talking about. So I'd like to consider myself that little baby mole, except I've gotten out in front. I haven't waited on the grim reaper of alcohol to just lop my head off. I know that I can take certain steps on a daily basis, and if you're new, you can too, to keep those things from happening. I can come to a meeting. I can stay in the literature. I can stay around sober people. That's an important one. Yeah, I want to go when I get out of treatment. I want to go to all my old friends and say how they're doing. That's some dumb shit, right? Because when Daniel came out of the lion's den, he didn't say, "Hey fellas, let me go back in there and get my fucking hat." You know what I'm saying? Hey, he had some good common sense, and what I'm trying to talk about is that I play a part in my recovery. There's things I got to do. I can't be gripped by the idea that Big G's going to do it all. Like if I'm starving, I can't lock myself in a closet and expect God to shove an Oscar Mayer through the keyhole. It ain't going to happen. God does His part, and I do mine, and He always meets me more than halfway. Now, it can be the God that I'm talking about, or it can be to you good orderly direction. There's no reason to be upset at anything I'm talking about, because I'm talking about a logical concept of taking the lead in my recovery, as this book just told me to, getting ahead of this thing, and doing some things today to insulate me and give me some insurance so I can feel safe and protected, so I can take back my life. Because I'm telling you, drugs and alcohol in whatever form took my life away from me. And I was a willing participant. Today I'm a willing participant of recovery. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I talked about a lot of things. Hopefully we're not talking about molasses. We're talking about improvement. What am I doing today? We're in the solution and not in the disease, because this is about experience, strength, and hope, not war stories, weakness, and despair. I've had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, and I'll pass.
Thank you, Mike.